Hi, I'm Olivia from Wilkinson Cameras, and today we have the new Fujifilm X-M5. It's a hybrid mirrorless camera suited for passionate creators that value both portability and performance. It will allow you to shoot a wider range of styles or genres, from everyday photos and videos to travel, portrait, landscape photography and videography. With very powerful video specifications like 6.2K 30p and 4K 60p, the X-M5 will be nicely tailored to vlogging enthusiasts or those that want a slightly more professional grade video. The X-M5 is smaller, lighter and more affordable than the X-S20, but it shares a lot of the same features, including the same sensor, the same processor, LCD screen, 8 frames per second continuous shooting, and the list goes on. But the question is, how is it different from the X-S20? And how does it compare to similar price models from its competitors? Straight onto the ergonomics, let's start with unboxing. In line with the new EU directive, Fujifilm are using more environmentally friendly packaging and removing what EU class as unnecessary cables and chargers, so don't be surprised if you order this and see the new style brown eco packaging. This is also the first model to ship without any cables or chargers, but going forward, you're going to see this with other Fujifilm cameras as well as from other brands. Most of us have USB-C cables and chargers to charge our mobile phones and other equipment now, so it does make sense, but the box may feel a bit empty as a result. Onto button layout, there's a mode dial on the right with 4 custom modes: vlog mode, video, and your generic stills and auto modes. On the left is a film simulation mode dial, which is pretty cool. This was first seen on the X-T50 and a lot of users love this feature, so they have now incorporated it onto the new X-M5, which I really enjoy. On the top you also have an on and off switch with a shutter button on top. There's a custom wheel to the right with program shift, exposure compensation, ISO and film simulation options. There's a red record button for video, and lastly, one button that I don't really enjoy the placement of is the Q button. Not only is it tiny, but it's in such an awkward position. With it being a quick menu, I don't find this to be the case. I would have preferred this to be near or next to the joystick on the back, or switch the Q button with the A, E, L and AFL button above the LCD screen. But what I have figured out is that you can actually customize this and switch the buttons. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Something I was impressed with was the thought process behind the port placement. They have moved the mic jack above the LCD screen and the headphone, USB-C and micro HDMI ports to the right side of the camera, so that you can actually see and maneuver the LCD screen without cables obstructing it. However, when recording the autofocus test earlier, I found it difficult to actually grip the camera because the ports were coming out the side, so you got a micro HDMI there. Obviously had my Atomos, which is here. Let me just demonstrate. Here on top of the camera, and the port was just here where my little finger is. So this is quite heavy, it's heavier than the camera. So when it comes to actually gripping the camera, it was quite problematic. But realistically, would you be using a Atomos with a camera of this size? I do know that you've got raw outputs in video, which I'll get into later, but it's definitely something to consider. I do like the idea, but I don't know how practical it is. Speaking of USB-C, let's just briefly touch on connectivity, because for iPhone and iPad users with the newer devices featuring USB-C, there's the new X-App USB connection. This allows you to quickly transfer files by wire to your iOS device instead of wirelessly, which I think is pretty game changing. But I hope we see this from more brands in the future, and I actually don't have a USB-C iPhone, but that's okay too, because there's new low bitrate transfer options for faster wireless transfers. But anyway, back to the handling. On the front of the camera, just below the on-off switch, is a custom dial that is also a button. You can customize this for each still mode that you're in. So let's, for example, go into aperture priority. You can see that there are 4 custom options for the front dial and then 1 for the top dial. You can choose between aperture, exposure compensation, ISO, film simulations, or nothing at all. You can switch between the 4 custom modes by pressing the dial, which I think is very clever for a camera that has limited button controls. The back of the camera is very basic with only a joystick, menu button, display button, AEL, AFL, control, playback, drive mode, and a mic port. Nothing too complicated. I guess this suits users that want a simpler setup. There's also a 3.0 inch vari angle 1.04 million LCD screen. The camera itself has a really nice leather grain texture. This is plastic, so doesn't feel super premium, but still is a very good quality. There's a small thumb grip on the back, which is absolutely fine for someone like me with small hands, but if you have larger hands, you might struggle with the handling, because as you can see, I mean, my pinky is kind of on off it, so if you have larger hands than me, which I imagine most do, then you might struggle with the grip. The battery is the NPW126S battery, which will get you around 440 frames in economy mode. Next to the battery is a UHS-1 card slot, so not the fastest, but do you really need the fastest buffer for a camera like this? As you can see, the camera is super small, compact and lightweight, weighing in at 355 grams with an SD card and battery, and with the 15 to 45mm power zoom lens, it's a super compact and discreet setup. This will also be available as a kit. Prices will be towards the end of the video, but it will be perfect for street, travel, general photography, where you need a lightweight, high quality setup, especially with the 15 to 45mm lens. The X-M5 is available both in black and silver, so you've got a few options there. Let's move on to image quality and autofocus. There's a back illuminated 26.0 megapixel X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor on the front and the latest X Processor 5, same found in the X-S20, so we know this little camera is powered with some very good features. This means that the camera has a standard sensitivity of ISO 160, a high-speed electronic shutter of 1/32,000, 10-bit HEIF, every time it gets me, 10-bit HEIF, however you like to pronounce it, files, subject detection, updated AF algorithm, and low power consumptions. These features are also found on the X-S20. Thanks to the 5th generation processor, the X-M5 can now detect animals, birds, cars, motorbikes, planes and trains. There's also very good face-eye autofocus, as you can see here. When I move around the frame, the AF is glued to the eye, and when my eyes aren't visible, it then detects my head. There are 8 frames per second continuous shooting in mechanical and 20 frames per second for electronic and 30 frames per second with a crop. So not super fast, but gives you the option should you need it. In mechanical, the shutter speed goes up to 1/4000th of a second, and in electronic, it's 1/32,000th of a second. A quick overview of some other features. There's zone custom settings, continuous AF custom settings, color chrome effect, grain effect, clarity, and portrait enhancer level. These features will allow you to capture the desired shot there and then, rather than altering in post-production, which I think is the beauty of Fujifilm cameras, especially with film simulations. Speaking of film simulations, same as the X-S20, there's 20 film sims, including the new Reala Ace. But let's move on to video. As I mentioned earlier, this little ditty camera packs a punch with video specifications. We have open gate 6.2K 30 frames per second and 4K 60p in 422 10-bit internal recording. Absolutely mental. If you're recording to an external device like Atomos or Blackmagic, then you can record 12-bit RAW video. The X-M5 also works in Frame.io, so you can wirelessly transfer files from camera to cloud for a more streamlined workflow. For high-speed recording, you can record up to full HD 240 frames per second, which works out to be 10 times slow motion, so super slow footage. The X-M5 can also be used as a UVC webcam at 4K 60p. You have F-Log and F-Log2 for that extra dynamic range. F-Log2 will give you 13 plus stops of dynamic range, so you can really control the highlights and shadows within your frames. But I must add that F-Log2, the lowest ISO value is 1250, and for F-Log it's ISO 640. So with F-Log you are quite limited in terms of ISO values, but if you get an ND filter, you should be able to control your exposure a bit better. The X-M5 doesn't have in-body image stabilization, but it does have digital image stabilization, which essentially stabilizes your footage by cropping into the frame. Here I've filmed a few examples of how effective the digital IS is, and you can see how much the digital IS crops into the footage. But it is incredibly powerful and really does stabilize the footage. Fujifilm have improved the digital IS and it now controls rolling shutter. There is also IS boost mode for even more stabilization. A feature that is relatively new to Fujifilm is the dedicated vlog mode. This also is found on the X-S20, but has been improved in this model with some new features and a new menu interface for quicker and easier access to vlog settings. So some features include portrait enhancer, mic levels, background defocus, product priority mode, and 9:16 short movie mode. So short movie mode will shoot 9:16, so vertical video for set lengths of time, so 15, 30 or 60 frames per second, 60 seconds long, which will be perfect for quick videos for social media. The vlogging mode menu makes life for a vlogger or content creator, or just anyone who mostly focuses on social media content, so much easier because you have all the necessary features all on the LCD screen, which has a touch interface. Simply tap background defocus and the camera will respond straight away. Moving on to recording times, I don't have plenty of time with this camera, so I can't test this personally, but these are figures that Fujifilm have given us. At room temperature, 4K 30 frames per second will record continuously for 60 plus minutes with or without an optional fan attachment. At 40 degrees Celsius, 4K 30 frames per second will record continuously for 20 minutes and 60 plus minutes with a fan. For people that vlog and need a tripod grip, Fujifilm have the TGBT1 grip available at £169, which will be a great addition to those that shoot on the move and need a quick and easy handle and or tripod. So on to audio. The X-M5 is the first camera to include 3 microphones and the option to choose directionality, whether that's surround, front priority, back priority or both front and back. So I'm now on the X-M5 and I'm going to test out the internal microphone. I am in vlog mode and I do have it hooked up to the Atomos so you can see all the menu settings. If we go into this button here, which is the menu option in the vlog mode, and go over here, you can see that you have a microphone direction setting mode. So the first one is surround sound. This will pick up sound all the way around the camera. This is front priority, so if you're vlogging like I am now, this should only pick up your voice and nothing around the back or the sides of the camera. This is back priority, so anyone behind the camera should be able to hear this, and hopefully I don't sound as clear as it did on front priority. And this option is front and back, so if you've got someone at the back of the camera interviewing someone in front of the camera, you should be able to pick up both voices. Thanks to this, the wind filter has been improved to reduce any unwanted noise. Another new feature is steady state noise reduction, which is a noise reduction that continues at a constant frequency. So back to the question earlier of how it compares to the X-S20. There's a few major differences to really consider. The X-M5 doesn't have IBIS or a viewfinder. It also takes a smaller battery, but with these differences, you are saving a significant amount of money. At launch, the price difference between the two models is £450. The X-M5 with the XC15 to 45mm f3.5 to 5.6 OIS power zoom lens launches at $899 in the UK. This also makes it less expensive than the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, which is also very similar in terms of specifications, especially with the product mode, vlogging features and enhanced microphone. I think this price and the retro almost Fujifilm X100 styling and film sims on the X-M5 may tempt some people away from the ZV-E10 Mark II as a result. Of course, if you need in-body image stabilization, a viewfinder and a better battery life, then you need to look towards the X-S20, but if you want affordability, most of the same features and technologies in the X-S20 and you're happy with digital IS and not too bothered about a viewfinder, then the X-M5 is the one for you in the Fujifilm lineup. As mentioned earlier, the X-M5 comes in black and silver and will be launching at $799 body only. With the XC15 to 45mm f3.5 to 5.6 OIS power zoom lens, it will be launching at $899. So that's it for today's review of the new Fujifilm X-M5, a baby X-S20 with the same sensor, processor and shares a lot of high-end features, but for a very affordable price point. This might be an entry-level camera, but in my eyes, it certainly doesn't have entry-level features, and it's such a great price point to get into Fujifilm's X series system. So would you choose this or the X-S20? Does this compact retro styling offer you a more affordable alternative to the X100 maybe? What about Sony's ZV-E10 options? Will this sway you away from those? So what do you think? Is this what you were hoping to see with the X-M5? Were you expecting it? Let me know in the comments below. I absolutely loved using this camera. It's super compact, small and lightweight, but absolutely jam-packed with impressive technology and features which will suit a wide range of creators and photographers. So please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again for watching and hopefully we'll see you very soon.